On this week's full-time roundup, we recap all of the action from the last international break prior to this summer's competitions. Plus, we get you ready for the restart of domestic league. Boy, are there some good ones. Full-time roundup starts right now. And welcome into the latest episode of the full-time roundup. Yes, you are hearing that correctly. My voice is back on the show. Matt Gesslin here, joined by, as always, Daniel Brackett. Daniel, thank you to you and the team for holding down the fort while I've been gone on holiday. Work has been kicking my butt of late, but big shout out to you and Ewan and Max and everyone else, Harrison, for holding us down and taking us through the last couple of weeks. It's good to see you. It's another early cast for us, but it's a good time to talk about some football as we're getting down to the home stretch here, especially in the domestic leagues and some big competitions yet to come as well.
Absolutely. Good to have you here. Fun fact for our listeners, Matt actually missed seeing me so much that he actually invited me to be on his soccer team. So now we get to see each other 3 times a week now. So much fun there. I'll definitely throw something on X next time we play together, just a picture of us. Maybe I'll throw a little video of Matt playing on there, just if the listeners are curious to see if he's a baller or not. But I
should be the other way around too. We, just so everyone knows, it's not just one-sided here, but we'll keep that for another day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Lot to get into today, of course. And yeah, if you want to, you're a photographer. If you want to shoot some pictures of me playing in our league, anytime is welcome, Matt. But let's go ahead and get into the United National team beating Mexico for the CONCACAF League? I don't even know they made this tournament up, so I don't even know what the official name is. But 2-0 after a really bad Jamaican performance, the U.S. national team turned it around and beat Mexico in the final. Were you pleased with this game? Did you still have your reservations about this after this game? What's your vibe, Matt?
Well, you kind of nailed it right on the head with the intro to this segment of not even knowing the name of the tournament. So that's how much stock I'm going to put into this little bit of, play for the U.S. men's national team. Jamaica was a disaster. Of course, a couple late extra time goals were needed to win that game against a depleted Jamaica. We had a pretty good lineup. I know you talked about it before the break, that you had no qualms with this starting lineup. And of course, Haji Wright gets a late ad as well. With I believe Josh Sargent went out with an injury. I still have my reservations. I think Greg Berhalter saves his job by winning this quote unquote competition and beating Mexico in the second game. Of course, Tyler Adams with an absolute worldly of a finish, and it's good to see him back playing on the field, and hopefully he can stay healthy, not only for us in the summertime, but for his club as well. Getting some minutes in Bournemouth would be huge for them, and just his confidence going forward too. So it was good. Of course, Gio Reyna gets to play and scores a goal. Whether that beef is squashed with Greg, we'll see. But I don't know. Mexico is a really, really bad side as well. And Mexico's a really bad side, and so just not really sure kind of what to make of this all in all. The bigger competition will be this summer as we go into Copa America. Of course, Mexico will be there as well, but will they actually be competitive? I don't really quite know. They have a decent group. Of course, U.S. is the favorite in their group. So it's really kind of going to come down to that for me and what Greg can do with this squad in Copa America. And if they can prove that they belong on the national stage with some of the likes of Brazil and Argentina and the rest of Copa America, we'll see.
Yeah, it's CONCACAF Nations League final. Just we were kind of joking around, but honestly not joking around at the same time before. A couple of things that I kind of grabbed from what you were saying. Number one for you is if we lost this game, or if we say we lose to Jamaica, there is no way they fire Greg, right?
You would think not.
I mean,
I
months, like
would like
3
him
months
to.
before the
I would
tournament.
like them to. I have I've had my reservations and comments about Greg in the past. I mean, you can still make a change if he loses to Jamaica. I don't see. It hasn't been smooth sailing since he's come back. That wouldn't have been the only game that it hasn't looked good under him since he's been back. And if yes, I mean, in my opinion, even though we would be 3 months away from Copa America, if you lose that game, now would be the time to make that change. You wouldn't want to go into the tournament if you're not really confident in the manager. The players probably wouldn't be as confident. You could see that kind of the way that they were playing, and I think you could have gotten away with it. Now I think it's a moot point anyway because he won both games, so
Yeah.
he's there. But I think if he doesn't make it to at least the quarterfinals of Copa America, I think Greg Berhalter's time as U.S. men's manager is finished.
Yeah, I sure hope so. Couple of thoughts, just more generally speaking. Like you mentioned, Mexico, very bad. Very
Very
bad. They
bad.
are it's probably the worst Mexican team I've watched in at like around a decade, it feels like. I mean, growing up, it seemed that Mexico and the US were almost equals. And I feel like in CONCACAF now, US is the best team by far, and then it's Canada and Mexico, and then everyone else, Jamaica, I guess, can be thrown in that as well. So, these like records against Mexico and Canada and CONCACAF should not matter as much as they used to, just considering how bad the team is. Another thing, that goal, Tyler Adams take an absolute bow. What a hit. Did not know he had that in his locker. He was funny talking about it after the game with Jesse Marsh. Jesse Marsh didn't even know he had that in his locker. So it's good to see. I didn't really want him to start anyways. I wanted Johnny to start, and he completely answered all the haters with that absolute banger. The last thing is this U.S. national team is like riding and dying for Greg. And I think it's so weird. I mean, like, I get you want to back your manager, but they're like best buds with Greg, it seems. And I just think that's just like, I don't really care for that at all. Like, I want a coach that obviously commands respect, but like at the end of the day, I just think the whole like situation of like they're going out of their way to glaze Greg Berhalter every chance they get in PR is just super weird. What do you think about that?
Yeah, of course. We heard, Christian Pulisic when they were rehiring Greg and kind of making the case for him, or after everything happened in Qatar. It's been like that since his hiring, to be honest. Not the first round, both rounds. It's kind of been an odd one. I'm with you. I like a manager that is not necessarily buddy, but has the respect of the players and wins. More importantly, to me, that's what this team needs, and I think that's where you mentioned, the way that the U.S. has grown in CONCACAF. I think that was inevitable, right? Just the amount of talent that we have as a nation, with the amount of people and possible players that we can choose from in the pool. It should be an advantage in CONCACAF, no doubt about it. We're starting to see that fruit of that labor come together, and players starting to kind of be, picked in the right play and starting to really make their strides and their names known in Europe. And so that's not surprising that we're ahead in CONCACAF. To me, though, it's really a matter of why these guys that are playing in Europe at the highest level with those managers that tactically are just light years ahead of Greg Berhalter, and the way that he positions them, and the way that the teams in Milan and the Premier League are set up, and what they're seeing on a day-to-day basis. I just don't understand if these players enjoy the break when they come to the U.S. men's national team. It's a vacation for them. It's not necessarily, okay, it's been so difficult at my club. I want a little bit of a breather when I come for an international break. And Greg gives me a nice pat on the back. We talk about his sneaker collection. He tells me what the latest kicks are that he got, how he did in the pickup basketball game, whatever. To me, again, it's all fun and games right now, and a little bit of jest here on the show, even at this hour. But this is real crunch time for these guys. Christian Pulisic is going to be defined by Copa America and World Cup 2026. If they think Greg Berhalter is really the guy that's going to take them to the promised land, then maybe we're questioning, their commitment to the team or what type of player they are. Because I can tell you right now, a Kylian Mbappe or a Vinicius Jr., they're going to look at Greg Berhalter and just completely walk away from him in training and what he's telling them to do, because that's not anything that they're being told by some of the best managers in the world. So, it's an interesting dynamic. And again, I don't foresee if the U.S. Federation wants to take that next leg and really wants to dominate the continent and ultimately the world in soccer, they're going to have to make an adjustment. And for now, I think it's fine. It's clearly been okay. We haven't had, again, we've only played domestic competitions, which we should be winning, Gold Cup, CONCACAF Nations League, whatever the fuck this tournament's called, all that stuff, that's fine. But when we're talking about the World Cup, that's a different story.
Yeah. Care to say Reyna was the player of the tournament?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see the talent that he has, and you see that whenever he's on the pitch. The tough part for me is why he's not on the pitch more often, especially at club. I think there's something going on, whether it's attitude off the pitch, or it's not a size problem. It's not a skill problem. He has both of those, and yes, the Premier League is a tougher league than Germany at large, just the way it's played, more physical. You see a lot of players have a difficult time transitioning back to that league. But yeah, I mean, he's honestly one of the most talented players in the pool. So it's not surprising to see him play that well. It's just more, why can he not do that week in, week out at a place like Forest, where he needs to get minutes, and he should be playing week in, week out for a team that's in the relegation battle. Why is he not doing that? That's my biggest concern, is where is he week in, week out in the club level, and why is he not proving it to that team at that level?
Yeah, it is one of the most odd things for me, for sure. He has the highest ceiling out of anyone in this national team. He might have the highest ceiling of anyone ever in the U.S. If you look at it realistically. So, getting him game time and club level is such a priority in the summer. It was a priority last summer, it's a priority in the winter, and it just still hasn't happened. So I hope he can find a home somewhere. And maybe, the next Dortmund coach comes in and finds a role for him. But the last thing I wanted to chat about when it comes to the U.S. national team is Santiago Jimenez. And there's also something going on with him. And he did not start either game for Mexico in this window. He came on after halftime in this game, and he was clearly upset about it. And that is Mexico's best player by a country mile. So, I don't know if it's Feyenoord reaching out to the federation, telling them to put him on limited minutes because he's going to, be a big signing in the summer for someone, or if it's the coach's beef with Santi. But you cannot be treating your best player like that. Obviously, we are not behind the scenes, so we do not know. But I just thought that was really weird, especially when it comes to a rivalry like the USA versus Mexico. You want to play your best players no matter what, and he got limited minutes.
Yeah, again, Mexico is a bit of a disaster right now.
It is.
You wonder what's going on, and you mentioned we're not behind the scenes. And Feyenoord, yes, they're not going to win the league. PSV had that wrapped up pretty much by Christmas time, as we've talked about in the show. And I do believe they're still in Conference League or Copa or Europa League, so they're still playing. But I don't think you tell the national team to rest him for the summer signing period. That would be a little strange, but yeah,
the limited minutes is a lot of teams ask their players to be on limited minutes. That's the kind of.
But again, it's not but there's nothing that Feyenoord's really competing in, or So I hear you. It's different than, and we'll get to it England situation and some other European nations, as we will get into Europe here in a second. But yeah, Mexico is just such a dumpster fire right now. I think that's the bigger takeaway for me. And I think, to your point, that's just a prime example of it. You play your best player in arguably the biggest game that you have, because US Mexico is the biggest game that you play. And so to not have that is just a finer point of everything that's going on in the Mexican Federation, which, boy, let's hope. And by the way, I want them to get it figured out, because when Mexico is good, it makes CONCACAF better. It makes the matches against the US better. Makes us have a little bit more competition to get us prepared for the bigger sides. I love playing Costa Rica and Guatemala and all those nations, but that's not really who we're trying to compete against, to be honest. So we need Mexico to be strong. That's why I love that we're in Copa America, because we're getting a real true test versus what we would get in CONCACAF. So I hope they figure it out. Not to the point they beat us again, of course, but I want it to be competitive for sure.
Yeah, and speaking of competitions, Copa America odds have come out. 30% win probability for Argentina, 25% for Brazil, 14% for Uruguay, 8% for Mexico, 6% for Colombia, 6% for the US. So they are above us in win probability. And I would like to see what supercomputer is computing those odds, because quite frankly, they're pretty shite. I mean, Mexico is fucking terrible. I would say Colombia and US are better than them. Ecuador might be better than them. Mexico might be one of the worst tournaments or teams in the tournament. That's just my hot take. But let's get on to some other games that happened. And we had 3 huge games within the Euros that me and Max actually predicted on Sunday's show. And first, I wanted to talk about Georgia and them clinching a Euro spot, which is, I didn't realize how big this was until I saw the celebrations. This is a huge minnow with a big win for the Euros, and that's what we love to see in competitions and the underdog.
Yeah, of course, they beat Greece to another minnow, if you will, that had a surprise run and winning the tournament a few years back. Hard to believe that was already about 12 years ago that Greece won Euros.
You're old.
Yeah, I know. Before your time. But that's why you love these competitions. You wonder, you saw the passion, you saw what it meant to the people of Georgia when they qualified. Of course, the players going absolutely crazy in the locker room as well. And that's the beauty of football. That's what this sport does. And that's why we watch it. It galvanizes people, and it tells you stories that you would never hear of or think of. And they do go into a relatively decent group, I would say. Portugal, Turkey, and Czechia, and they have talent. There's no doubt about it. They have some players that can make some noise in this tournament. It would not surprise me if they advance out of the group stage. But a great story nonetheless, and a minor nation, just in terms of size. And they get a qualification spot through the playoff, and you feel for a country like Greece, which is struggling not only on the pitch, off the pitch, financially, things like that. Would have been a nice story for them to have something to be supporting in the summertime. But congrats to Georgia, and hopefully they can make some noise.
Another great story was Ukraine and them going through to be in Group E. Now, we've talked about the Ukraine story before, but they actually came back from down a goal in this game, came all the way back and won with the Mikhailo Mudryk goal late in the game. There was absolute scenes. Ukraine did not play a home game for the last 2 years. They've been playing in Poland, and they have still qualified for the Euros. They have a very talented roster, and this was probably the best team that qualified. But just considering just all the terrible things that has happened to them as a country, as a nation, it's just one of those things that feels like, karma corrected itself out.
Yeah, of course. If you if you haven't been paying attention to any news the last 3 years, congratulations. First of all, tell me your secret. But no, not in all seriousness. Of course, it's devastating what's happening, and again, similar to Georgia, just going to be a really nice break for the people of Ukraine to have something to rally around and watch in the summertime. Of course, a really talented squad. They have players all over Europe and some of the biggest leagues, Premier League, of course, with Mudryk and Zinchenko and players like that, just to name a few off the top of my head. And you hope that they can do well. Of course, they're a team, again, they get slotted into a really favorable group, if you ask me, for where they're going. And Belgium, very probably at the end of the golden era, not as strong as it used to be. Romania and Slovakia. So again, similar to Georgia, they can get out of the group, which would be great. And again, that's the beauty of this tournament, similar to NCAA tournament, which comes back today. Of course, once you're in the dance, anything can happen. It's a different story here where you're playing, a rounds of games versus a one game kind of playoff type of deal all the way through. But it's a fun opportunity for nations like this to advance. And there's always a darling that happens in any big competition. And hopefully the first two teams that we just talked about kind of make some noise, as I keep saying, and are those darlings, and kind of keep us engaged for the entire tournament for the summer.
I love the March Madness reference. I didn't know you had that. Didn't know you had that in your locker. The last team was Poland, getting through, and unlike these two other teams we talked about, they got put in an absolute brutal group. 2 out of 3 of these games, by the way, were finalized with penalties. It was Poland, Wales, and penalties, and it was Georgia and Greece in penalties. Just wanted to mention that. But Poland's group, in Group D, no pun intended, is Poland, Netherlands, Austria, and France. That does not seem like a fun group to be in at all. I mean, all 3 of those teams before Poland are just humming right now, and Austria especially has come to life under Rangnick, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it's not going to be a fun tournament for Poland, I don't think.
Yeah, you also feel for Dan Williams, I believe, for Wales, who was unfortunately the player that missed. Everyone else had made. I think everyone was 5 for 4 or 5 for 5 if you're talking about Poland's perspective, and then he steps up and misses that one penalty at home, knowing that if you don't make this penalty, you're out of the Euros. So you feel for the young player like that, and 0-0 in this one too before it went to penalties. So a really nice little nap game if you were able to watch it. I think Fox tucked this one away. Of course, with all the international break happening, they didn't have the qualifiers on the main broadcast, which credit to them for that. Well done there. That's neither here nor there. That was a little bit tongue in cheek, but yeah, it's a welcome to the show, if you will. Netherlands, Austria, and France is your prize. We'll see what happens. Of course, Karol Swiderski was there off the bench.
He started. No, he started both
games.
In
the end. Okay, perfect. There you go. So I guess that move to Hellas Verona paid off for him in the end. But they have some talent. Robert Lewandowski and Matty Cash, and they have some players there. But boy, it's going to be a tough group.
They just play such ugly football all the time. I don't think I've ever seen Poland play good football before. But we want to just get to a couple of the big storylines from the international break. And we touched on, me and Max touched on some of this storyline, but Brazil versus Spain. This was Dorival's first international break with Brazil. They looked a lot better after losing 3 in a row. Which is good if you're Brazil. You pick the right coach to lead you into Copa America. But, Brazil-Spain is a heavyweight, matchup. But the only matchup I cared about in this game, to be honest, was Endrick versus Lamine Yamal, and in the battle of the teens, 16 and 17 years old, respectively, and both put on an absolute show. Lamine Yamal, his highlight mixtape from this game was insane. he was just chopping people up left and right. Not a, playing for Barcelona on the biggest stage almost every game must be daunting. Then getting called up to the Spanish national team might be daunting. And then having to play against Brazil in one of your first 5 apps, that's got to be, I'd be shitting myself. And he did not seem to care. He was just absolutely going at people. And so was Endrick. Endrick came on and just looked like he belonged. I mean, they just have that dog in them. Like you could see it in their eyes that they're there and they have a absolute mission. And Endrick scores 2 goals in 3 apps for Brazil. Going to Real Madrid this summer is, been a key player for Palmeiras. Like we've talked a lot about Lamine Yamal, but it might be a constant Lamine versus Endrick conversation starting next season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky one because they're so talented. They're of course being hyped up, and Endrick particularly, right? The next Pele, and just the hype that he's getting because of where he comes from, because of the form he's been in. I would love just to put it more in context. Of course, played it. I believe at Palermo, not Santos, where Pele played, but coming out of the Brazilian club ranks and just having that pedigree behind him. I mean, they're super talented. The sky's the ceiling. It's going to be great to have both of them in La Liga. Not only on top of that, just one more point on Lamine Yamal, which we've talked about ad nauseum during multiple episodes here, and we will continue to do so. Not only was he playing for Spain against Brazil, but in the Bernabeu as well on top of that. So not friendly confines for the 16-year-old, 17-year-old now, in Barcelona here. They're super talented, and it was so fun to watch. And you talk about Endrick coming on, and scoring the goal. He scored against England as well, which was, we can talk about that game. England has some struggles. Brazil, credit to them, they picked 2 really, really strong competitors to play against in this break, and they really, we were worried about them. They looked really rusty coming into this after some qualifying for World Cup. That's, of course, they've already started their World Cup qualification process down there in South America. They looked terrible, and they hired the new manager, and here's your first go, Gaffer. England and Spain on the road in Europe, and they passed the smell test, if you will. They looked really good. They dominated against England, especially in the second half. This game against Spain was a lot of fun, back and forth. And you mentioned, Endrick and Lamine Yamal. There was, of course, players like Dani Almo who shined. Spain still, to me, is a little concerning if you're a Spanish fan, just because there's not that out and out number 9. Morata he's just not in form. And you hope he gets some form between now and the summertime, because when he is in form, he's a world-class striker almost, it feels like, but he goes through sits and starts, and right now he's in a start, not in a start, and it's tough to watch.
Yeah, Ferran Torres will probably be that guy if he can get healthy before the Euros. Spain are just super injured right now, all over the field. So we'll see. I mean, Rodri really stepped up big in this match.
2 penalty. He had 2 goals. Yeah.
I mean, I just think he's just one of the best players in the world right now, just in general. Doesn't get talked about. We've seen him do it for Manchester City all the time, but I feel like he's rather quiet for Spain. He just does his job, but I mean, he's the key player for Spain in the Euros, if you ask me.
I mean, it's kind of how he's in City too. He's kind of quiet, does his job.
Yeah,
that's just who he is, and it's a great player to have. To be honest, I'd take 11 of those if I could find them.
Absolutely, and I love Dani Olmo. I've always wanted him to have that breakout season. He just, between injuries and then just like the style at RB Leipzig, it doesn't really suit him, to be honest. But he will have a 60 million release clause this summer. So it'll be interesting to see if Barca takes him home, the La Masia prospect. But I do think he's such a magic player. We've seen flashes of brilliance for Leipzig multiple times. It just making that more consistent is the big thing. Now, I wanted to mention Austria. I mentioned them before. What a international break they had. They don't have Alaba. Arnautovic is injured, missing one of their better center backs. Bainu right now, and they just annihilated a few teams with not a strong lineup. I mean, Ralph Rangnick got a lot of shit when he left Manchester United. People were saying he's a sporting director, he's a shit coach, just absolutely saying crazy things about my man Ralph. And he has done nothing but good things for this Austria national team. And they could be one of those darlings, like you mentioned, in the Euros, just from how they played, the heavy pressing. And they have some really, really good young talent that Ralph has cultivated. I'm super excited to see it in the Euros.
Yeah, of course, they smashed two teams in the tournament, 6-1 against Turkey, which is impressive. Yeah. Feels like the game that we played on Tuesday. And then 2-0 against Slovakia. So, Slovakia, Slovenia. Either way, both teams are in the tournament. You mentioned, his time at Manchester United. I think that whole story is a bigger story than him. I don't think that has anything to do with Ralph Rangnick as a coach. You saw, and he talked about it even during his time there, the quote about you need open heart surgery here. It's that bad of a situation. This is what he does. He goes in and he builds rosters it may take some time, which I think is why a club wasn't necessarily the best fit, especially not Manchester United. But a federation is where he can kind of shine and develop and kind of grow the talent pool and see it progress and work with the federation to build it, whether that's through the domestic league or getting kids to other countries within the sphere of soccer to kind of build their skills. I think this was a fantastic hire from Austria's perspective. He's going to do wonders here, and obviously we're seeing some of the fruit of that labor early on. I think Austria is an underrated nation as far as the soccer world, but I think in the next 5 to 10 years you're going to see Austria be in that next tier, not the top tier. There's no doubt about it. They just don't have the resources yet, or they may never, but they will be fighting for very strong second tier position in Europe, and they'll give teams fits in tournaments like the Euros and keep an eye out for them in the World Cup in 2020, not 2026. They didn't make it, but in 2030, teams like that, they're going to be kind of more under the radar, and you're going to start to see Ralph Rangnick get his system in there, get to kind of put his hands on it from the top down. And Austria is a team to watch out for. You mentioned some of that talent that they have. And of course, if they get, Alaba back for the tournament, that's just some experience as well that they're going to add at the back line there. So, and he's played different positions for Austria. He hasn't played in the back always. So I think they're a fun team to watch. They do have a difficult, group. So that's the real test is going to be, can they finish ahead of the Netherlands? I still have reservations about how I saw France play, but they probably win the group. So you're looking at, can they finish second against the Dutch? Poland, I'm not too concerned about if you're asking me, especially the way that they play.
Absolutely. Rangnick is one of those guys that has me thinking what he could have done to the U.S. national team in the summer.
Yeah, he would have been perfect fit for that too. So again, just building a team.
Yeah, building a team, and a lot of our players have that DNA of the Red Bull group. Multiple players played in that system. You have veterans who played in that system who are already like team captains type roles. So what could have been for the U.S. national team if we just pulled our head out of our ass? But another team.
No, and just to put a finer point on it real quick. I mean, if you're a fan of football and you've seen what RB Leipzig and Salzburg have done and the system that they're playing, that was basically Ralph Rangnick's brainchild.
Philosophy.
Like that was he created that whole system and structure that they have now in place. So, he's done it before is my point. And he has, if you're United, you should have given them the chance. That's their loss. But if you're Austria, you're thrilled because he's just going to do wonders for that country and would have been a perfect fit for us, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, Klopp took his ideas and made, changed them around a little bit, but like Rangnick was like one of the fathers of gegenpressing and that style of that heavy metal football. He is a footballing genius. He doesn't get talked about enough, And I think after this tournament, his name will sound a lot better than it has in recent past. But this man is a footballing genius. He's not only a director, but he's a coach as well, and he's showing it. So I'm glad we, talked really good about him, because that's some really great content right there. But another team that's kind of come back to life as of late.
Another genius.
Don't look, boy genius. Don't look now. They might be hosting the tournament, and I might be there. Germany had.
Well, then that might be. They are hosting the tournament.
They are, and I actually am. I will be there. But Germany have big 2 wins, and Nagelsmann is cooking for this German national team. You know what he did? He went and called back Toni Kroos. He said, "Tony, I need you. I need your leadership. You've won everything under the sun. We need that leadership in this team of a younger German team. Wirtz, Musiala, you are going to be the fulcrum of us going forward." And they just beat 2 great teams, the last window before the Euros. Man, I wasn't really counting Germany in as a favorite. And after this window, especially being at home, they are now a top 4 favorite for me.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of knew that they were going to figure it out, right? At some point, or at least
did you though?
You hope
they've been
did.
Awful.
They have been.
I mean,
awful.
Max mentioned they've crashed out the last 3 tournaments. There's nothing that has given
no
me
doubt,
confidence.
no doubt. This window is huge for them, particularly. We can talk about all the other nations and England losing, John Stones, and was he necessary, and the favorites, and France not playing great, but Germany absolutely needed this window. They needed to find a system. Nagelsmann still new on the job and not getting much time with these guys. This was what he needed. He needs to continue to find where to put players in. He's got a whole new system he's got to look at too. Long are the days of Germany being Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund only, right? You have Stuttgart now, who's strong. They have players there. You have Bayer Leverkusen, of course, at the top of the table, who have players like Florian Wirtz, just to name,
Endrick.
An example, Endrick. You have Mittelstadt from Stuttgart now, who's now going to come in and probably own that left back position. He just looks so good there. So this was a huge window for Nagelsmann, and credit to him. And again, we kind of joke, but hasn't really proven us wrong yet. Boy genius. I mean, look at his record at Bayern Munich. They were undefeated in Champions League, get sacked. They won the title, get sacked. I mean, I don't quite understand. That's a different topic for a different show, just everything that happens at Bayern Munich, a lot of politics there, but he was winning. And so why would you get rid of him? And Germany's lucky to have him for the time period. Of course, it does look like this is temporary as he wants to get back into the club world, and credit to him for that. But this Germany squad is concerning now, in a good way for them, bad way for everybody else. And it's at home. You don't ever discredit the home fans. Of course, they have Musiala, they have Wirtz, Havertz up top. They have a 3-headed monster at the top, essentially. If you want, if Wirtz and Musiala play a little higher and Havertz up top there, they can play a flat 3, or they can kind of play off each other a little bit.
Sane too. One
Sane
can play
as well.
10, which is even scarier.
Yeah, I mean, and you can have Gundogan play a little deeper, which is my preferred role for him. I don't think he's a good 10, but I don't think he can control it. We've talked about this before for Barcelona, where he's not going to dominate the game and boss the game. So if he plays a little deeper next to Kroos, with that experience, and they can kind of ping balls around, you put, Sane at the 10, or even put Musiala at the 10 and put Sane on the way. There's just so many options now for Nagelsmann. And you saw it. The talent's been there this whole time. You were worried, if you're an outsider, that Nagelsmann was going to come in and figure out a way to put the pieces together. And so far, this window, granted, it's just one window, but they have looked better over the last, 6 to 8 months under him. And now they go into a tournament where they host. And that's never discredit the host nation, especially a team like Germany with the talent and the skill and the history that they have. And that place is going to be rocking, especially if they get a good start, Daniel. They really, really could take this thing all the way home.
Completely agree. Havertz is just happening to be playing his best ball in probably 2 years too. So, the biggest question probably was the striker position for this roster: Fulkrug, Bayer, or Havertz. And Havertz has kind of answered that question for now. Obviously, you want to be in playing your best football in June. But the last 2 months have been great for him. So we'll see if he can continue that form with Arsenal for the rest of the season and then carry it into the Euros. Toni Kroos, 35, 30, 34 years old, something like that. Signed a new deal at Real Madrid, I think yesterday. That was here we go from Fabrizio, and he's probably the key player for me in this German national team. Although he's old, he is the one with the experience, the one that won it all. Probably the most underrated midfielder of the generation, you could say. But I just at least wanted to mention that because I have absolutely loved Toni Kroos for so long. But I wanted to get
so much
talent, just 90% pass completion, playing the 8 position for like a decade at Real Madrid. That's just not normal.
Yeah, and again, you have Thomas Mueller who can come off the bench. You have Fulkrug who can come off the bench and play up front. Kimmich can really start or play behind Benjamin Heinrichs. I mean, just the talent is there to just kind of put that finer point. And now it's again, Pascal Gross could play. There's just so much opportunity for Germany, and I think you give Nagelsmann time to figure it out. They're going to figure it out, and the rest of the teams like Portugal and France better watch out.
Yeah, I've been just scheming in my head the best XI for Germany, just because there's so with Wirtz and Musiala's flexibility tactically, you could do so much with him. But I wanted to get into another debate regarding Portugal with and without Ronaldo. Without Ronaldo, they won 5-2 against a good team in Sweden. And then they went and go and lose 2-0 to Slovakia as Ronaldo goes the full 90. Are we on the same page that Ronaldo or Portugal, if they want to be challengers for this tournament, they need to play Ronaldo in a super sub role? Because it's very obvious that the game has passed him a little bit on the international stage, tongue in cheek, obviously. But what are you agreeing with me, or do you think this was just one of those weird friendly one-offs?
No, I mean, we talked about it in the summertime during qualification for this tournament, which is crazy that happened. I'm over, and I've been over Ronaldo on this squad for a very long time. I think also this squad is very overhyped. Well, they'll have to prove it to me at the tournament itself. They haven't played anybody, just plain and simple. So yes, the qualification process was a cakewalk for them, and rightfully so. If it wasn't, that's a little bit more concerning than if they're playing Luxembourg and they're drawing, or Herzegovina or whoever else they were playing. Nobody. And they also get the luck of going into a nice, easy, comfortable group as well with Georgia, Turkey, and Czechia. So you know what? Good for them. You could probably play Ronaldo and get through the group stage if he plays or not. He wants to play. Let's just put it out there. He still thinks he's the man. He still thinks he's going to score all the goals as a world-class striker with the pedigree and the history of goal scoring he does. Credit to him. But time to move on. Time to be that super sub. Time to be a team player for once versus just being my team and me, which has always been Ronaldo. And so if he can do that, this team has a chance, an outside chance. Talented, no doubt. If it's all about Ronaldo, then I think they crash out in the first round of the knockouts. Just because I think the way that he presents himself and the way that he brings a little bit more headache to Roberto Martinez than needed, and it trickles down to the rest of the team, I think that plays a huge impact. So we'll see. I mean, it's really up to him. But I think to your point, and I agree with you, of course, nobody knows what he's doing in Saudi Arabia. Is he what kind of competition is he playing against? Is he just sitting on the net and just tapping them in as he goes? It's really kind of a joke, but he still is Ronaldo, and he's going to drive the conversation. But for me, he's a sub, and that's plain and simple. And by the way, that's a good problem to have if Ronaldo is your sub.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like not even like us being mean about Ronaldo. It's like, look, he's 37 years old. Just play him in that super sub role and let him cook that way. Couldn't agree more with that. Now,
It's like me out there.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely not. Can confirm. But I wanted to get to some predictions as we are finally back in the domestic league. I mean, with all the content that we've been doing, it was definitely nice to have a little bit of a hiatus before the final sprint of the season, if you will. But man, once I started putting together these predictions, it really just pulled me right back into just being like a joyful little kid, excited to watch the matches. And first on the docket, we do have the biggest game of the weekend. This could play a gigantic factor in who wins the English Premier League. City versus Arsenal at the Etihad. Matt, take us away.
Ooh, this not only could it will decide the title. Of course, Liverpool as well play on Sunday, so all three title contenders play on Sunday. I believe you play Brighton in the morning.
That's correct.
So you and Arsenal on 64 points, City on 63 points. At the Etihad, no John Stones probably, no Kyle Walker probably.
Yeah.
It's just I still think that City find a way to get a draw at home, which is not the end of the world for them. I do think we've talked about it before. We talked about it specifically with the Liverpool game, actually, because it's the same type of thing. Draws for City are not bad, especially against the two top sides, because you don't expect them to lose the rest of the way, just historically. I can't say the same for Liverpool and Arsenal. I think there's opportunity for them to drop points. Don't get me wrong, there's opportunity for City to drop points too. It's just historically, when they need to, they don't. And so if you're Arsenal, or if you're an Arsenal fan, or even a Liverpool fan, you want Arsenal to win this match, because it especially if Liverpool wins, you're 4 points clear of City with that game done. Now it's just take care of your business. Same with Arsenal, and of course, then it's really in your own hands. Long way of saying I think this is a draw, probably 1-1. It's probably a little cagey at the beginning because both teams will have players coming back from international break. They're a little bit rusty, or just kind of going through the motions, getting back into the system that they're used to playing week in, week out. It was funny to me that Declan Rice and John Stones had a little conversation. Of course, now it doesn't matter because John Stones won't be playing, where Declan Rice asks him, hey, ready for the big game this weekend? And John Stones kind of half-heartedly says, what game are you talking about? So I think there's a little bit of mind games being played by City players. And of course, Arsenal midget syndrome sometimes maybe takes a factor into that. But we'll see. I mean, this is a big test for Arsenal. Last year, they kind of faltered at the end, and this is a huge starting point with 10 games to go. So I still, all this talk about it, I still think a draw. But this is such a big game that we could talk almost an entire show about it going into it. Unfortunately, we only have 5 minutes for Matt to make a 1-1 prediction here, but I'll take 1-1.
Yeah, you were supposed to have 1 minute, turned it into 5. Now
it's the biggest game of the weekend.
No, it is. No. I think you did a great job with that. And I absolutely hate agreeing with you. But I'm going to go draw here as well. Man City have been pretty horrendous against the top 6 opponents this season. Getting only 1 win so far. And then when you mix in, the Stones and the Walker injury, I think it'll make it even harder. We're going to see some tired legs after international break in the flights. So I'm going a 0-0 draw here, but a draw, none the same. And we'll see if Liverpool can stretch out their lead against Brighton and see how this race continues. The second biggest game, there's in 3 leagues, there's some huge games. The second one is Der Klassiker, Bayern Munich, Dortmund, Allianz Arena. Is this one a little bit more ho-hum, or are you giving Dortmund a chance here?
I would like to say if Dortmund surprises, this title is over. So that is how big this game is for Bayern Munich.
So finally, you'll admit it's over.
If they lose, if Bayern Munich loses this game, yes, absolutely, it'd be over. So in that case, I think Bayern Munich come out and it's ho-hum 2-0 Bayern Munich, and it's game on to the finish because that is really, we're now getting down to the final games here, and that pressure is really going to crank up on Bayer Leverkusen. Again, if Bayern go out and just drub Dortmund the way they've played the last couple of games, I think it's a little bit more added pressure. It cranks up a little bit more in Leverkusen, and yeah, game on at that point. But which I do think is a 2-0 win for Bayern. But if they drop this game somehow, some way, basically start writing the engraving on the trophy for the Meisterschalen this year.
Yeah. This whole Kane injury, he's back in training, so it's really throwing me off on my predictions because I don't know.
He's going to play. There was no need for him to play internationally. So
yeah, I think he'll play as well. And if there's anything I know regarding a Der Klassiker, it's that Bayern Munich is going to absolutely thrash Dortmund. So I'm going to go with 3-1. I don't think this game is going to be even close. Terzic versus Tuchel. Two terrorists of football, and I'm going to have to back Tuchel here to outcoach Terzic, which I feel like isn't saying that much, but I'm going to go 3-1. I'm sorry for all my Dortmund fans out here listening. I just want to prepare your mind for this game because you're going to be disappointed yet again. In Spain, Real Madrid versus Bilbao. Now, me and Harrison, and you've talked about it as well, we on our betting show, we did a futures and we actually bet on out to get fourth or Madrid or Atletico Madrid. So this is a big game for that to see, if they're up to snuff for that. What do you think?
Two ways I want to look at this. Part of me wants a draw, so that way when Barcelona beats Las Palmas on Saturday, we have a race, which would be down to 6 points.
I'd like that. That'd be nice.
That would be nice, especially with an El Clasico to go. So that would be great. On paper, Real Madrid probably wins this game 2-1, especially at home. So that's where I'll go 2-1 at home. But this title race is still far from over, in my opinion. It would be great, though, if we get a 6-point gap after this weekend. So hoping for that. And maybe even less if Bilbao can pull off the upset. But I would say probably Real Madrid at home, 2-1.
I'm going to go 2-2. I think Ernesto Valverde is a wonderful coach. He's had all international break to think about how he wants to break down this Real Madrid team. Real Madrid or Real Madrid, but how they set up is not easy on the eye. I think they are beatable on any given day. It's just a matter of having the right game plan. And I think Bilbao is going to have the right game plan with Inaki Williams and Nico Williams and all that, all their star-studded boys. So I'm going to go 2-2 draw, which would really help me out in me and Harrison's bet. By the way, recording the betting show tonight, so go ahead and check that out later today. And then we have Betis versus Girona. Talked about Girona quite a bit before. Is this their downfall starting now?
Yeah, give me Betis 2-1. I'll stand by it until I'm proven wrong. Maybe I'll be stubborn, which is not like me. Surprise, surprise. But,
yeah, never would have thought stubborn come to mind.
2-1 Betis and Girona. So long.
I'm gonna go 1-1 draw. A lot of draws here for me, just because very close matches, but. Got 3 really good games in Italy, Napoli versus Atalanta to start. Napoli are actually favorites in this match. Do you agree?
Yeah, they've been playing really well, although I do like Atalanta, which we've talked about. This is a 6 versus 7 matchup. Really important, battle here, especially to keep pace with Roma and Bologna for that 4th place position, although maybe potentially 5th place for Champions League. I agree that they're favorites. I don't think they win the game. That doesn't mean I think they win. They're only favorites because they're at home, to be honest. So give me Atalanta. Actually, you know what? I'll take a 2-2 draw here. I'll take an exciting draw. I'll get on the draw board.
All right, I'm getting 2-1 Atalanta win.
That was what I was thinking originally. So
yeah, and then we have Fiorentina versus AC Milan. Interesting one. We'll see if AC Milan can keep trying to pull closer to enter here. How do you think this game shakes out?
Here's my nap game. I knew there was one coming. Probably Milan probably going to dominate this one, to be honest. Although a lot of travel for some of the young Americans to get back that are key to this team.
Very true.
Yeah, I think 2-0 Milan.
I'm going to go 1-0 Milan. We won't predict it because we're going to get out of here, but I think Juve versus Lazio is the biggest nap game of all time. But thank you if you're still listening right now to our predictions. Thank you for listening to the show. If you're following us on X, go ahead and interact with us. We'd love to hear from you at Full-Time Roundup. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. We have a bunch of other content that we put out there. If you are listening on a Spotify or podcast form, give us a 5-star rating and download our episodes, please. And I've actually added a TikTok just to post some of the shorts that I make. So if you have TikTok before it gets banned, go ahead and follow at Full-Time Roundup. Matt, always a pleasure to see you. Hope you enjoy your weekend and enjoy the football.